First, with respect to follow up in the same line of questioning as my colleague, what I heard you say was that the course was suspended during COVID.
I will verify that. I will say that a number of our continuing education programs were suspended during COVID because of the availability of the training and the trainers.
So
but I will verify that.
What does the training look like?
Yeah, I will ask Brenda Kinney, our Chief Nursing Officer, perhaps to come forward. She may have a bit more of the specificity of the components of the program.
And while we're waiting for her to come up, my concern is we have suspended this training during COVID, but what we did not suspend was sexual assaults.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
So I can tell you that the training is quite extensive. It involves, I think, at least between 3 to 5 days, depending on what the background of the actual provider is. And it's very extensive, looking at all the components from the actual exam, collection, the emotional support, all of that type of thing. So it's a quite intense program. It's an accredited program, an international program that we follow in order to have designation as SANE nurses. And to keep up their, they need to have 36 hours every year of additional training in order to keep their SANE designation. So it's, there's a lot to it. As Ms. Melanson had said, it's generally nurses that are doing this as an addition to their role, be it a part-time, full-time, whatever job. They have an interest. We have nurses from Women and Children's program, ICU program, Emerge program, so they don't all work in the emergency department either. It's a fairly broad cross-section of nurses that are interested. Like most things during COVID, people really weren't interested in doing, you know, a whole lot of things that would be considered in addition to their roles. So that was a real problem. Our education programs overall during COVID either slowed significantly or, depending on the level of close contact and resources that we had, were suspended. And I as well can't say for sure that it was suspended. I know there were requests for interest put out back in 2021, but I'm not sure if all areas actually put programs on.
And I can't help but think that this goes to a much larger societal problem. When I consider the hat that I wore during a significant portion of COVID, it was with the Department of Justice, and it was a regular and ongoing conversation that we had about what was happening with individuals who were isolated. And I can tell you that personally, I watched the numbers come in monthly as we got reports from the department so that we could keep a close eye on the number of domestic violence reports that we had and sexual assaults that we had, because what we know is that even though this course may have been suspended during COVID, this activity did not. And in fact, there was great concerns across the board that these activities had actually increased. And we had people living in incredibly isolated situations. And I have to tell you, I appreciate that you're going to go back and get the information to determine whether or not this course was suspended. And I would suggest that if you do that, that you also find out who gave the direction.
I would just add as well that for the most part, the shifts have generally all been covered in terms of providing that, and like many things lately, with the shortage of nurses and vacancies, we certainly have struggled, and I would say it's not a surprise that over the summer it's really been a struggle for some of these things. So.
And I apologize, well no, I don't apologize for the passion in my voice, because we should all be so passionate about this conversation.
Yes. Absolutely.
I agree with you. We certainly recognize that all women deserve this support.
All persons.
Absolutely.
All persons.
All persons, and that's exactly right. We certainly regret that there was this gap in care that was obviously apparent here, and we will say that we will commit to making improvement, to carrying out this process review, to understand exactly what we need to augment this program, to make it appropriate, sustainable, and obviously available to all women.
And it is disappointing to me that it has taken what I perceive as a back burner, because I said this morning when I spoke with Vitalite. The very first initiative that was top of my list that came to my attention when I was elected in 2018 was the fact that on the island of Grand Manan, we did not have access to a sexual assault nurse examiner. And the solution that was provided to us at Horizon at that point in time was that the individual could wait until the next ferry crossing and then come to the mainland, where they would then have the ability to be examined by a sexual assault nurse examiner. And what that means is that the victim, the alleged victim, would have to not brush their teeth, not shower, remain in the clothes that they're wearing, then travel across the ferry. And so this is a significant period of time where an individual continues to be traumatized. So I cannot imagine that, well, first of all, we were able to overcome that, and my congrats and my appreciation for Horizon for taking it seriously and understanding the seriousness of the situation. But here we find ourselves today, just 4 years later, in a very similar situation, and asking a victim to delay. As a lawyer, I am incredibly concerned when I think about the preservation of evidence. And I think even about the particular situation that is before us, and question, whether or not the individual will even have a fair trial because of the events that have occurred around this situation. I appreciate very much that you are, I sense that you are taking it very seriously. And again, please don't take my passion as being directed at you as individuals, but it is the same passion that we should all feel across this province when we hear this story.
And I appreciate you raising this, and I also appreciate your passion. It is a passion that we share. We are absolutely committed to make improvements in this program.
Now, I will say 3 to 5 days, as intensive as that may seem, from someone who spent 7 years in university in order to get their credentials, 3 to 5 days is a pretty short period of time. The 36 hours a year, that is absolutely significant. But what I hear you saying is that this will not be swept under the carpet, that this has been prioritized, and next year when we find ourselves at public accounts, we will not be having this conversation again, but we will be talking about the good news story of how this tragic situation has been used to turn things around in our province.
Thank you. That's absolutely our intention.